First things first, fear is mostly an imaginary thing. Even though you may feel it physically in the form of sweating, heart palpitations, trembling, and so on, a lot of times, those things that you waste your time being afraid of will never happen. Like with everything else in life, if you want to get better at something, you need to do it often. Practice makes perfect, as they say. So obviously, the most important thing you should do is to do the things that scare you as often as you can. You should see them as practice opportunities. But the key word here is gradually. With that in mind, let me introduce you to the fear ladder. And what is the fear ladder? It's that you start doing the things that scare you the less and then move on to the ones that scare you the most. For example, if what scares you the most is lane changes, then driving next to trucks, then highways, start with lane changes and move on to the other topics after you're comfortable with that. You can also use the fear ladder within a topic itself. What I mean is, divide each feared goal into smaller objectives. For example, when you first start practicing your lane changes, practice them on mostly empty streets. But when you become better at it, go do it on some moderately busy streets, then on a busy street at rush hour, let's say. Then you move on to goal 2, trucks. Drive on normal streets where there are fewer trucks at first. Remember to keep more distance behind trucks, the distance of a car between you and them at least, even when stopped. But don't be too far so that you can't read what's written on the back door. It's important in this case, you know. Then go drive in an industrial zone where there are trucks everywhere. Then practice overtaking them, making sure that you don't stay in their blind spots for too long because they can't see you there. So overtake them as quickly as possible while respecting speed limits. Once you feel confident with that, tackle goal 3, highways. Start at times when the highway is quiet, then go drive at busier times. Also at the beginning, stay on the same lane for a while, then start changing lanes more often in easier conditions and then when it's harder. Then enter and exit, first at quiet times, then at busier times. Staying on the highway is relatively easy. The hardest part is entering and exiting. Basically, go drive where it scares you to drive and increase the difficulty factor gradually. Other things that new drivers are usually scared of when starting to drive are cyclists, pedestrians, commercial streets where you'll often see a lot of the aforementioned users, as well as a lot of vehicles, emergency vehicles, driving downtown, driving at rush hour, in tunnels, on bridges, driving bigger vehicles or vehicles with a manual transmission, driving at night, under heavy rain, in the snow. You get the point. Go drive in those situations if possible and whenever possible. Then why not mix some of your fears? If you're scared of driving in the rain, of rush hour, and of highways, why not go driving on the highway at rush hour on a rainy day? Getting rid of our fears will only happen by doing the things that scare us. That's called exposure in psychology. If you always practice in the same environments, for example residential areas, you'll have the impression that that's the only place where you can drive. Practicing in quiet zones is obviously a good strategy when you start, and it's also usually easy. But eventually, you'll have to move on to busier streets. Driving in stressful zones does hurt at first, just like your legs will hurt after your first jogging runs. But after a while, if you run regularly, they won't hurt anymore. So you've noticed a pattern here? Don't stay too long in your comfort zone. If you never get out of it, it'll become a lot harder to improve. And you don't need to do long sessions at the beginning, but try doing it for 20 minutes per session at least. The anxiety fades away after a while. Remember those oral presentations we all dreaded in school? Weren't the first minutes the worst ones? Then the fear slowly faded away. Also, try to do these 20 minutes practices a few times per week for it to be effective. Another thing that's useful is to visualize. It works. Athletes use it, business people use it, artists use it. You're already conditioning your brain. Imagine yourself driving in situations that scare you, but feeling calm, confident, enjoying it. Then the only thing left to do is to do it for real. That's it. Adding the procedural learning part to the equation. Of course, deep and steady breathing is still one of the best time-tested methods of relaxing, so you can use that too, especially before your exam. And another thing I've experienced with some of my students is that they're terrified of driving after they had an accident. And not only if they were the driver when the accident happened, but sometimes also if they were the passenger. They become scared and let a lot of time pass before they drive again, or even get in the car again. Don't. If you do, you're letting those fears grow. And last but not least, don't be afraid to fail. Success is the result from a series of ups and downs, of learning from multiple failures. Those people that you admire that have succeeded at anything, they're the ones who have failed more often, except they kept on going. It's that simple. As the Japanese proverb says, If you fall 7 times, get up 8 times. So here's an invitation to face your fears gradually. I know fears are strong, but so are you. Big thanks to my psychologist sister for giving me a few tips for this video. So be confident, be safe, have fun, see you next time.